SeaWorld got started in 1964 in San Diego, focusing on marine shows and exhibits. And, as tends to happen, it morphed more and more into an amusement park, spread to Orlando and San Antonio, and in 1989, they were acquired by Busch Entertainment, responsible for the Busch Gardens parks in Florida and Virginia, as well as Sesame Place near Philadelphia, that company dating back to 1959. It was Busch that added all of SeaWorld's coasters starting in 1997. The company later acquired by Blackstone in 2009, and in 2024, the company changed to its current name, United Parks & Resorts. Over the years, the SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, United Parks chain has added 55 coasters. And today, let's rank up their favorite manufacturers. Just a few disclaimers. Normally, I'm only looking at coasters added while the chain was in charge. If it was added to the park before they took over, or after they left, I'm not including it on this list. But for this video, Busch Gardens added all their coasters to the original parks. And there were no SeaWorld coasters before they acquired the chain. So, every United Parks coaster will be on this list. Also, I am not including relocated coasters. It doesn't come up much on this video, but I don't think those are a good indicator of how a company works with a manufacturer. Usually, these come about by happenstance, an opportunity they take advantage of, so only new coasters will be on this list. United Parks goes back to 1959, but the first coaster came in the mid-70s. Among the first being Das Katchen at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This kids coaster being the one and only time they work with the Allen Herschel Company. This is one of the 7 manufacturers they've only used once, and the other 6 are much more recent. Vekoma has built over 400 coasters, but only one in the SeaWorld chain, the intense family coaster Vapor Trail at Sesame Place, Philadelphia, starting off with a 56-foot drop and going right into an upward helix, something that can definitely catch young riders off guard. A year later, they got their one and only Morgan, the mini hyper Steel Eel at SeaWorld San Antonio. Still, one of the best coasters in the entire chain, the airtime in the first half being so powerful, it's actually painful when you land back in your seat. The Gravity Group got their one coaster in 2018, Oscar's Wacky Taxi at Sesame Place. A small but mighty family wooden coaster, only having a 39-foot drop, but over that 1,200 feet of track, it's pretty much non-stop airtime. And just like that, we're finished with Sesame Place, Philadelphia. The next year, they got their one and only Skyline coaster. Only 5 Skylines ever built, and this being one of the few coasters that have ever left a SeaWorld park. Tidal Twister at SeaWorld San Diego, the horizontal Skywarp operating until 2023. Unfortunately, there's only one RMC on this list, but it's a good one. Iron Gwazi opening in 2022 as one of the world's best coasters. A top 10 coaster in my book. That 206-foot drop and 91-degree angle and 76 miles an hour top speed, making it the tallest, steepest, and fastest RMC in the world. And finally, we have Zamperla. SeaWorld went decades without buying a Zamperla coaster, 400 around the world, and they finally got theirs in 2023 with the opening of SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, an indoor junior coaster called Eel Racer. Moving out of the one-offs, we have 2 manufacturers that have 3 coasters in the chain, and we'll start with the old and move on to the new. Schwarzkopf getting 3 coasters in the 2 Busch Gardens parks between 1975 and 1980. The first one in the entire chain being Glissade in 1975, ready in time for Busch Gardens Williamsburg's grand opening, this being a jumbo jet that lasted 11 seasons. The next year, Busch Gardens got Die Wilkatze, one of their classic Wildcat models, that being taken out in 1983. Tampa got in on the fun in 1980, the Silver Arrow Looper called Scorpion. This model generally being portable, but this staying right here for 45 seasons, closing at the end of 2024. So, 3 Schwarzkopfs, but none of them are still around in the chain. The other manufacturer with 3 is GCI, putting in 3 wooden coasters between 1999 and 2020. The first one also came to Tampa, this being the dual-track Gwazi, one side lion, one side tiger. The only wooden coaster in the park's history, 105 feet tall and 3,500 feet long, and it was shut down early in 2015 and left standing for years. RMC finally getting their hands on it in 2019, and after the nasty COVID delay, reopened as Iron Gwazi. It took SeaWorld 18 years to go back to GCI, but in 2017, they bought another wooden coaster for the other Busch Gardens park, Invader. This one is on the smaller side, 74 feet tall, just over 2,100 feet of track, bigger than a family coaster but not quite a full-size Woody. Then, in 2020, they installed the only wooden coaster at any SeaWorld park, Texas Stingray coming to San Antonio. A hybrid structure, 100 feet tall, 3,400 feet of track, a twister layout full of airtime pops, and definitely a top half GCI in the country. We have 2 manufacturers with 4 coasters, and once again, we'll start old and move on to the new. Aerodynamics is one of them, and unfortunately, only one of those coasters remain. It all started with the first ever coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa, 17 years after the park opened, putting Python in back in 1976. This is a basic aero corkscrew, a 72-foot drop wrapping around into 2 corkscrews. But when you consider this opened in 1976, That was just 1 year after the original opened at Knott's. So the modern looping coaster was brand new and a big deal. This was taken out in 2006. 2 years later, they turned their sights to the other Busch Gardens park in Williamsburg, and they put in Loch Ness Monster, those interlocking loops being among the first in the world, just barely losing out to Lightning loops by a couple weeks. Loch Ness Monster is still going strong today, having just been overhauled in 2024, so it has a bright future as the only remaining Arrow. The other two Arrows also came to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, starting with Big Bad Wolf in 1984. The Arrow suspended coaster, featuring that iconic 80-foot drop over the river. That size of drop being unusual for an Arrow suspended, and this is considered a top-tier suspended coaster. After 25 years, the park announced the ride had reached the end of its service life, and it last ran in 2009. Then, there was one of the most infamous coasters in history, Dragonfire. This looper was different from most Arrows, having tubular columns, not the steel lattice you find on rides like Loch Ness Monster, and they were a bit over their skis on this one. 150 feet tall, over 2,500 feet of track, 6 inversions. They had to remove the last corkscrew in 1994 because it was just too rough, and after just 7 seasons, they shut it down for modification, sitting idle since the summer of 1998, finally being removed in 2001, this being possibly Arrow's greatest failure. That was the old. Now, let's look at the new. Premier Rides also has 4 coasters in the chain, the first one coming in 2015, the last one in 2022. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Most of these are Skyrocket 2s. Tempesto at Busch Gardens Williamsburg was the first one. They crammed this right next to Apollo's Chariot, 150 feet tall, a swing launch that gets up to 62 miles an hour. That slow twist at the top, and the most unique thing about this was the trains. It has 3 cars instead of 2. That was good to increase capacity, but they put comfort collars on them, a trend that would unfortunately continue. SeaWorld's San Diego got the next one in 2018, Electric Eel. That park's first coaster in 6 years, starting a big push of coasters over the following 5 years. And 1 year after that, we got Tigress at Busch Gardens Tampa. That seemed like a holdover coaster while we waited for Iron Gwazi, but is still a forceful ride in its own right. That was their 3rd Skyrocket 2 in the course of 4 years, but in the 6 years since, we haven't seen another one. We did, however, get one more custom Premier Rides coaster, Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando. This would also have a swing launch, going up and down a junior scorpion tail, up and over an 80-foot top hat. No inversions, but an airtime-filled ride. And after a couple of years, they removed the comfort collars. Now, just a lap bar. Next up, we have 2 manufacturers with 6 coasters in the chain, and let's start with Mack Rides. With Mack, you can go from the super lame to the super elite. And I wouldn't say any of the Macks in the SeaWorld chain are super elite, but not all of them are super lame. The first of 6 opened in 1996, Wild Mouse at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, your classic compact Wild Mouse coaster. Lots of hairpin turns and small dips, not having one main drop. This was removed in 2003 and found its way to Tampa in 2004, operating all the way to the end of 2023. 2 years later, SeaWorld would order the first coaster for SeaWorld Orlando, and the first of 3 water coasters in the SeaWorld chain, Journey to Atlantis. None of these are the same, despite all being Mack water coasters, and this one in Orlando is the best themed, and I think the overall best ride. 6 years later, they got one for SeaWorld San Diego, that also being the first coaster in the park's history. 95 feet tall, 60-foot drop, swooping turns and a splashdown. Not as impressive or immersive, but was a big deal for the park when it opened. In 2007, San Antonio got the last water coaster, this being the worst of all of them. So they really did start high and end low with these water coasters. This being a glorified shoot-the-chutes coaster, going up a lift, using a turntable to go backwards, dipping to the other side, another turntable to go back forward, and then a drop into a splashdown. Some people don't even consider this a coaster, and it's not hard to see why. 5 years after that, Mack Rides gave SeaWorld San Diego the first real coaster, the family multi-launch coaster Manta, never rising far off the ground, but launching up to 43 miles an hour, a great setting full of twists and turns, very impressive and appealing to all ages. Their last Mack coaster came in 2016, the spinning coaster Cobra's Curse at Busch Gardens Tampa. 70 feet tall, well-themed, having 3 sections where the train goes forward, backwards, and spins. One of the most impressive family coasters out there. The other manufacturer with 6 coasters is Intamin, and all 6 are pretty recent. The first one was actually Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa in 2011. 4,400 feet long, 3 launches, 1 inversion. Cheetah Hunt is still probably the most popular coaster in the park, and one of those coasters that isn't too crazy for young riders, but isn't too lame for thrill seekers. Despite hitting this home run, SeaWorld didn't hire Intamin again until 2017, getting another launch coaster into the park, but instead of using LSMs, this would use spinning tires. Wavebreaker, the rescue coaster at SeaWorld San Antonio. This marking that park's first new coaster in 10 years. 2,600 feet long, set over a lake, 61 feet tall and 44 miles an hour, using jet ski style seating. 5 years later in 2022, SeaWorld struck gold with Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. A brilliant swing launch coaster, similar to Icebreaker in a lot of ways. Just way more extreme in just about every way. 3,300 feet of track, 2 inversions, an airtime filled top hat and outer bank. Truly, one of America's best coasters. After Pantheon opened, there were 3 Intimates in the chain, and 1 year later, that number would double. One of those 3 that opened in 2023 was Dark Coaster, a straddle coaster very similar to Wavebreaker, but this being set indoors in the building that used to house the Curse of Dark Castle, making 2 laps around that course. San Diego got a similar ride in Arctic Rescue, none of these coasters being clones, but the idea is the same. A family-friendly launch coaster, 2,800 feet of track, 40 miles an hour, never rising off the ground, themed to riding a snowmobile. For that last Intimate, we have to go to Dubai for its 2023 grand opening, and its main attraction is Manta, a 3,900 feet tall 4-inversion triple launch coaster, starting off indoors, going out and wrapping around the main park that's mainly inside. This definitely looks like a top-tier coaster in the chain. We have one manufacturer that has 7 coasters in the chain, and that's Zero. There is no doubt, Zero has been SeaWorld's go-to manufacturer for kids and family coasters, and that's been the case from 2004 all the way to present day. The first one being Shamu Express at SeaWorld San Antonio in 2004, renamed Super Grover's Boxcar Derby in 2019, and was packed up and put into storage after the 2024 season. This being replaced by Beach Rescue Coaster, a much longer family coaster that just opened this past March. SeaWorld Orlando got their own Shamu Express in 2006, this being a longer family coaster, also renamed Super Grover's Boxcar Derby in 2019. Busch Gardens Williamsburg followed in 2009, Grover's Alpine Express having a figure-8 layout, and the next year, its sister park in Tampa got the same coaster, this one called Air Grover. Let's finish off the kids coasters with a park we haven't mentioned yet, Sesame Place San Diego. This park opening in 2022, and Super Grover's Boxcar Derby being its one and only coaster, the same layout as the ones at Busch Gardens. The only one of 7 coasters that Zero put in that wasn't for kids was Revolton, the coaster that replaced Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in 2012. A very impressive multi-launch coaster, part indoors, part outdoors, having a drop track and the same 88-foot drop that Big Bad Wolf had, proving that Zero can do more than send a coaster into a basic figure-8 layout. And finally, in first place with 15 coasters, more than double that of Zero, we have B&M. SeaWorld's relationship with B&M goes back to 1993, back in the early days of B&M, and they bought the first large-scale B&M in Kumba, 143 feet tall and having 7 inversions, their first coaster to exceed a 100-foot drop or 5 inversions. They went right back to B&M in 1996, again at Busch Gardens Tampa, the monster inverted coaster, Montu. This also having 7 inversions, and is, for my money, the best invert they've ever built. This was the first of 3 straight inverts the chain would get, the other Busch Gardens Park in Williamsburg getting Alpengeist in 1997, 6 inversions but standing 195 feet tall, still the tallest B&M invert ever built. That same year, they introduced Great White at SeaWorld San Antonio, marking the first ever coaster to grace a park with a SeaWorld name. SeaWorld also took a chance on B&M by buying their first ever hypercoaster, Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, opening in 1999 and having a 210-foot drop and 4,900 feet of track. 1 year later, SeaWorld Orlando started their long-lasting relationship with B&M, opening the 7-inversion Flores coaster Kraken in 2000, still arguably the best Flores coaster ever built. And then SeaWorld set their sights on the dive coaster. They brought America's first dive to Busch Gardens Tampa in 2005 with SheiKra, 200 feet tall and a vertical drop, and 2 years later, they one-upped SheiKra with Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, 205 feet and having 1 extra inversion. 2 years after that, in 2009, Orlando got their second B&M, the flying coaster Manta. With the economy being down, and the Blackfish documentary driving down the company's public image, we wouldn't see another B&M until 2016. Once again, Orlando getting the big prize, the 200-foot tall, 4,700-foot long Mako. And then we would see one more rush starting in 2022, 5 more opening since then, starting with Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego, a smaller scale dive at 153 feet, supposed to open in 2020 but pushed back because of COVID. Orlando got yet another B&M in 2023, Pipeline the Surf Coaster, a one-of-a-kind model with some crazy standing airtime. And from there, after getting 12 extreme coasters, SeaWorld went back to B&M for 3 family coasters. Orlando got Penguin Trek, a one-of-a-kind sit-down family launch coaster. Tampa got Phoenix Rising, resurrecting B&M's family inverted model that had only been seen in China up until 2024. And this year, Williamsburg is getting Big Bad Wolf, the Wolf's Revenge, another family invert. So, 15 coasters, almost all of them being headliners. And like with Cedar Fair, SeaWorld has seen the value in investing in B&M, paying more upfront but getting a solid, reliable product with high capacity. That's a wrap on SeaWorld's favorite manufacturers. Let me know if anything stands out to you, and if you have any other comments, sound off in the comments below. If you want to see the same video for other chains, I have a playlist, that link's down below. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I want to thank my Patreons. If you want bonus access, bonus content, and have your name listed at the end of each video, check my links below and join. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.